Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today, we're going to interview actor Kevin Sorbo. He is both an actor and a producer who is well known as the star of two enormous hit TV shows and numerous movies. The first TV show was called Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and was the biggest show on TV at the time. It was seen in 176 countries. His second hit series was Andromeda. He's also very well known for acting in and producing many great faith-based and inspirational films like God's Not Dead and Let There Be Light. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our free channel. You can also like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on the notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. I'd also like to tell you about a service called HollywoodIsCalling.com. It's a great service that allows you to purchase live phone calls from your favorite celebrities, so check it out. There are more than 100 stars to choose from, and the calls can be bought for as little as $19.95. So give it a try. HollywoodIsCalling.com. Now, let's say hello to Kevin Sorbo. Hello, Kevin. Welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a busy week for me. So I'm kind of looking forward to a little slowdown this weekend, but I got to leave Sunday. I got a speaking event in Omaha, Nebraska. Then I got to go up to Connecticut to speak at a rally there. So it's going to gear right up again, but I'm looking for a couple days of relaxing.
Nice. So, Kevin, you've had a tremendous career and you've appeared in a lot of hit TV shows and movies. Before we get into all of that, can you tell us how you got your start?
Wow, if you want to go way back, I was 11 years old when I fell in love with that. I grew up in Minnesota, and Guthrie Theater is a very famous theater in Minneapolis. We saw my school took us to see a play there. It was The Merchant of Venice. It was Shakespeare. I don't know what the heck they were saying because it was Shakespeare, but I was totally mesmerized by the actors on stage, and I kind of made that decision right there and then. Even though I was a jock, all my basketball and football buddies made fun of me to start taking acting classes, but I loved it. I loved doing it, and commercials has really opened the door for me in Minneapolis. I did a lot of commercials. That gave me that all-important Screen Actors Guild card. And I went to LA and I just said, here I am, and busted my butt. You know, my best friend said, remember, it's called show business, not show. Mm-hmm. So I took my double major, marketing and advertising, and market and advertise myself, because as an actor, you are your own product. So I just kept plugging away, and I just always had belief in myself that it would happen.
So the Hercules TV show was incredibly successful around the world, and it gave you a massive platform to both act and direct. Which did you enjoy doing more?
Well, I started directing by season 3. I love directing. If you're going to tell me I have to pick one or the other, I'll take acting every time. I love it. I got to brag a little about Hercules. By season 3, we did become the most watched TV show in the world. We're in 176 countries, and that 7 years there spun right into my 5-year run on Andromeda, and that was created by Gene Roddenberry. So my Captain Dylan Hunt, was the first captain after Captain Kirk, and that was cool for me because as a little kid, I grew up watching all the reruns of Star Trek.
You know, I've met William Shatner, really nice guy, but I haven't spoken to too many people who knew Gene very well. What was your perception of him? Was he a real visionary? Was he an astute businessman? What was your perception of him?
You know, I got to meet him once real quick in the late 80s. He passed away in 92. Mm-hmm. I think he was just a kid with a wild imagination, but an intelligent imagination at that. He admitted he didn't know any of the tech words. You know, he called Star Trek a Western in space. Mm-hmm. And anything that they needed for tech, if he was writing this, he would just say, tech. And he went to space aeronautical engineers to get the right wording for the different things on all the episodes of that series. But I only got to meet him one time. I got to know his widow much better, Majel Roddenberry. And I got to go to his house after he passed away when I got the role on Andromeda, and sat at his desk, which was really cool for me because she kept it the same way it was since the day he passed away. And that was kind of a treat to sit at his desk and see the works that he was still planning on other television series in space, because that's where his love was.
Mm. You know, to this day, I am amazed at the fact that the network canceled that show when they did. Just unbelievable.
It was probably the biggest mistake they made. But here's the thing. In today's world, it would have gone 10 years. But back then, you only had ABC, NBC, CBS in the 60s. And you had PBS. And so if you were getting 25, 30%, of the share of each hour, because it was only that 3 places really divvy it up. They looked at you, it's only getting 22 million households, which is massive. They keep, shows that get 1 million households, they keep those on for 5 years now. But obviously they knew it, and I think they made up for the movies that they did, because I think the movies did quite well for them as well.
So Hercules then made it possible for you to be on another hit show called Xena, Warrior Princess, with Lucy Lawless. And you guys, you were sort of early with the entire warrior fantasy superhero genre. We fast forward until today, and comic books rule the big screen. But you guys launched it off pretty early.
Well, Hercules really kicked it off. We started filming in '93. Xena was a spin-off show from Hercules. There was an hour slot that had opened up, and the Universal Studios said, why don't we do a female type of Hercules show? So at the end of our season 2, we did a 3-show arc spinning off that character. They didn't know at that time if they're going to pick it up or not, but they loved it. So by our season 3 was their season 1, and that show did very well as well. And then season 5, we spun off young Hercules with a 20-year-old Ryan Gosling playing me as a teenager, and it was pretty cool to be, have such a successful show to kick off 2 spinoffs.
Were Hercules and Andromeda both syndicated shows at that time?
Yep. Hercules ran from '93 to 2000, and Andromeda from 2000 to 2005.
Interesting. And were there, I don't know how much experience you had with network television, but were there substantial differences between doing a syndicated show and, say, a network show?
Not really. Syndicated shows just mean you sell to each country, basically. You sell to each state. You sell different time slots and different days and stuff like that. But we still covered 99.8% of the country in America. And we, like I said, we're in 176 countries. I think the biggest difference between being a network show, the networks have so much control over the show. They really let us do our own thing down in New Zealand. We didn't want to make the writers mad or anything, but there were a lot of changes in terms of, a line here, a line there in almost every scene. We would ad lib, we would throw stuff in. We gave them room to edit that out if they wanted to. But when the writers were in California, we're down in New Zealand filming, things happen when you're on the set. You look at different things and you got a different set here, and you start running the lines. You go, wouldn't it make more sense if we did this here or did that there? And it wasn't to outdo the writers, but we would only change maybe 3 or 4% of what they wrote. It wasn't like we changed everything. It's just that it would have helped if we had the writers on the set, and I wish we did. But we were a day ahead in New Zealand, and so we're filming on Monday, and it's Sunday back in the States. So we couldn't get a hold of the writers to ask them, hey, what do you guys think of this? What do you think of that? The time difference is too much. But I think that was the biggest difference. They gave us a lot of freedom on that show, and it was nice to have that freedom.
By the way, you mentioned New Zealand. Everybody who goes there seems to fall in love with it. Have you ever thought about relocating there?
If I could get another 7-year series, as I tell my wife, down in New Zealand, I would do that and just retire down there. I would stay down there. I would golf until they have to put me 6 feet under. But I love that country. It's a beautiful place.
Now, you're also a producer. How would you compare the profitability of doing a syndicated show to the profitability of doing a network or a streaming show today?
The syndicated world seems to have disappeared, and why, I don't know. Maybe I don't know all the pros and cons of that, but I think the advent of streaming has taken over everything. You've seen Disney and everybody else. They got to jump on that bandwagon. Disney got to a point with Netflix. They said, wait a minute, we got enough product. Why don't we have our own streaming service? So everything about movies has changed. It's a whole different world out there because of the digitalizing everything. I still think movie theaters are going to be around once we get past this fear of COVID being next to each other, even though we can cram each other on airplanes. Don't get me going. I think more and more people will still go back to theaters, but streaming's here to stay. It's just the way it is. And people want to binge now. They want to watch. Netflix does 13 episodes, then puts it out there so people can pretty much watch as many as they want in a week.
Yeah, I just binge watched a show on streaming called Startup, which is about drug dealing and the starting up of a new tech company. So it's sort of interesting. It started out on Crackle, which is a lesser known network.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And now it's on. Now all the episodes are on Netflix, so you don't have to sit through the endless commercials. But so is it true that halfway through season 6 of Hercules that you chose not to renew your contract? Can you tell us about that?
It was actually season 7. They came to me to do seasons 8, 9, and 10. I said, because we did one season of five 2-hour movies. That was a season because we shot those 10 weeks each. That was a whole year down there. And then it became a series. So near the end of season 6, they came to me to do another 3 seasons. But then at the same time, I got offered to do Andromeda. And I was kind of ready to do something else anyway. And it was still within the Universal family since they own the Sci-Fi Channel. So it wasn't like I was walking away from, hopefully giving them, shows that become successful, because Andromeda became very successful as well. So, there's truth that the offer was there, but I had a chance to do something different. I was kind of ready to do something different.
What had a greater impact on your career financially? Was it Hercules or Andromeda?
Well, Andromeda did, because Hercules, each season, obviously, the first couple of seasons, they got me for nothing, but then it became a hit. So it became a bigger and bigger cash cow, not only for me, but certainly for the studio. But because Andromeda came right on the heels of it, I was able to get a much better contract right out of the gate with Andromeda. But that was because of the success of Hercules.
So in 1997, you moved to the big screen and you starred in Kull the Conqueror. Did you enjoy that transition to movies? And were there any big lessons that you learned from it as an actor or as a producer?
It's a much slower pace. When you're doing 1-hour television, it's boom, boom, boom every day. You got to pump out, 7, 8, 9, 10 pages a day, and there can be a lot of action, a lot of dialogue. You're moving much quicker. Studios, when you do studio movie, it's obviously much more time on the set, because it's a grander scale, so it takes longer for the lighting, longer for the camera setups. But it was still a pretty grueling show to shoot. I mean, we shot like 16, 17-hour days. I loved the original script they sent me, but the studio was very nervous about losing Hercules fans. I wasn't. I said, guys, I took this because, it was kind of Hercules in a way. It was called the Conqueror, Conan's father, but it was much darker. It was much more sexual. It was much more, the fights were much more evil. It was definitely a hard R to it, but they toned it down out of fear for my followers on Hercules. So they made it a PG-13, which is a little depressing for me, but I really had fun in the movie, and it's become sort of a cult classic. And people, when I do these autograph shows, I would say at least 20% of people come up, they want me to sign stuff from Kull. So obviously there's a fan base out there.
Now, you guys, when you were doing the TV shows and Kull at that point, was that pre-CGI, or were most of your effects physical? How were you guys handling all the special effects at that point?
There was a combination of both, but CGI was definitely coming in. I mean, you can see it now. It's pretty dated. The shows still look great because it's set in that time period. That hasn't really aged. I mean, people now, I'm getting a second wave of kids that are watching it because their parents, who are now the age I was in my 30s when I shot it, their kids now are 8, 9, and 10 years old. So when I do these appearances, a lot of these kids come up because their parents said, "Oh, you got to watch this show with us." So those parents relive their childhood through the eyes of their children. But it was fun to be part of that, and CGI was definitely part of it. The Weta Group that did all of our CGI went on to do Lord of the Rings. I mean, you see how big they are with Lord of the Rings. So you can see the CGI getting better as each season went along.
Didn't Amazon just pay for like $485 for the Lord of the Rings TV show rights?
I have no idea.
$485 million.
Oh, well, that they probably did. They got the money to do it,
Yeah. Well, as a producer, what's more challenging for you, producing a TV show or a theatrical movie?
I think a movie is tougher. I mean, well, I think it depends who you talk to on that. I think, but we do budgets in the $3 to $5 million range. That's like catering budget in Pirates of the Caribbean, right? I mean, they have $300 million movies, so we have less to work with, and you still want to do a really good quality with it. I like to do films that I call them actors movies, where they're more dialogue driven than they are visual effects. I mean, I like watching The Lord of the Rings, or I like watching Avengers too, but it's really like a roller coaster ride because the majority of it is just, computer generated images. I like to do movies that got me interested in being an actor, where people can watch these movies and they can be moved. They can, they can watch characters that they can relate to, or they know someone like that, make them laugh, make them cry, make them think. Movies in the vein of, like, if I look at a studio movie like The Green Book, with Viggo Mortensen, or Blindside with Sandra Bullock. I mean, movies like that. I love those kind of movies that have a very good message in them, but they're not like in your face message. They're just saying, hey, look at this situation. I like stories that have a real life twist to them. That's more important to me than anything else.
They tend to be a little more family friendly too.
Yeah, no question.
And a lot of producers still don't appreciate that. They want to go in a different direction because they all want to be edgy, but then you miss out on the family audience.
Yep.
So I know that you enjoy acting and producing religious movies for the theatrical market. Do you think there's also a market for religious video games in this day and age?
Someone brought that up to me before about doing one of those. I would like to see what that looks like. I have no idea. I think there would be. I think there's a market for all of that. Look, there's 80 million homes out in America, 80 million homes that want not necessarily religious, but family-friendly movies. Movies that have a good message, movies that aren't as edgy as what you mentioned earlier, that have all that anger and hate and violence in it. And I'm not a prude in any way. I go see those movies too, but I just think that every single movie, why does it have to be that sort of edgy? Why can't we have movies that have positive characters that have a road to redemption, so to speak, positives instead of negatives? Because everything you see, and you see it being played out in our streets right now, all the anger, all the hate, all the destruction gets to the point. It's like, guys, there are good people out there too. We don't always have to show weird people that are angry, people that are on a path of destruction. There's good characters out there, and why don't we show that instead of constantly force feeding us all this stuff that's so negative?
So I heard something really interesting about you. I heard that in the 90s you experienced an aneurysm in your shoulder, which caused 4 strokes. Yeah. I heard you believe that the strokes were triggered by chiropractic manipulation of your shoulder, and this released blood clots from the aneurysm that left you with some health issues that took you a while to recover from. Now, I'm bringing this up because I suspect people would like to know, first, how you made such a great recovery. Usually 1 stroke is enough to take somebody out of the game permanently. Most people who've had 1 stroke almost never recover, How did this affect? How did you affect such an impressive recovery?
Well, I think number one, I was in my 30s and I was in really good shape, still doing the Hercules series. I was a pretty ripped up guy all through my teens, 20s, and 30s. Always in shape. I was ate right. I was worked out. I was cardio, lifting, everything, stretching, yoga. I did all that stuff, and I think that helped a lot. Unbeknownst to me, I had an aneurysm way up here in my left subclavicle, and the last couple months, season 5. I had all these problems with my left arm. I couldn't figure what was going on. These 3 fingers in this hand were cold and numb and getting worse as the weeks went on. I came back to America at the end of season 5 to do promotional work on the set of, talk about Call the Conqueror, Letterman, Leno, all the talk shows. And then I went to see my doctor because it was driving me crazy, and he found that lump up there. And he thought maybe it was cancer. Didn't tell me at the time, but he said, we got to do a biopsy and see what's going on. So I went to a chiropractor. Now, the chiropractor I went to, in 8 years, he's never cracked my neck because I don't like my neck cracked. I've had it cracked years before, and I never liked the feeling of it. I just didn't like it. You can work on my body and crack my back or whatever, but leave my neck alone. He knew that. Well, a voice in my head went over and over, don't let him crack your neck, which was really weird because he's never cracked my neck. I didn't listen to that voice. He cracked my neck this way. Well, that aneurysm was so close to where that artery feeds into the neck that they call it vascular retrograde or something like that, because it's happened before to other people where they crack the neck, and where that aneurysm and spitting out clots, it forced some clots into my brain. And I spent the next 4 months learning how to walk again, learning how to talk again, learning how to balance again. It took me 3 years to fully recover. You can see in the last 2 years of Hercules, I went from a 14-hour day to a 1-hour day 4 months after I went back. And I would just do a scene or two, and I would be pretty much just standing or seated. I couldn't even do the action anymore for a while. Slowly worked up to about 8 hours a day during the last season of that series. But I never got back to those long hours on that show. But I wrote a book. It's called True Strength, My Journey from Hercules to Mere Mortal and How Nearly Dying Saved My Life. And the head of neurology at Cedars-Sinai in LA and the USC Medical Center wrote a they didn't write my name in there, but they wrote a chapter on me in neurology about how I recovered, because they said it was a miracle that I recovered the way I did. And, really, my first speaking event on that book was here in West Palm Beach, Florida, where I spoke in front of 500 people at the American Heart Association, and they had 20 people in the front row, and all 20 people, through a neck manipulation from a chiropractor, suffered strokes. And 2 of the 20 people were widows, because the men that had that done to them died. So it's definitely out there. It's rare, but it definitely happens. And I think people should be aware of it. I mean, I think you probably got a better chance of getting struck by lightning, but it still can happen.
Let me tell you why I ask you this question. A lot of people these days will walk through shopping malls and they'll see these massage booths and these massage booths set up throughout the mall, where with some guys with very little or no training will give people back and neck massages. And I'm hearing that some of these people are getting strokes a month or 2 after getting these massages without ever realizing that they were caused by them.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on this whole, because it's getting more and more prevalent. In fact, most malls you go through now, you see these massage booths sitting, and I see them jamming elbows into the top of people's necks and just, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I think, the chiropractic service has a place, but I think that everyone should be aware of the fact that the neck is a very delicate area. And I think that don't get your neck cracked.
Yeah.
There's things you can do, rubber bands, there's stretches you can do, there's things you can do. I just think that quick jerk, I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a short fix anyway, because people, their neck hurts them again. But I think there's yoga. I think there's all kinds of things. So the best way to do this is, hopefully, who's ever watching this right now, if you go to chiropractors, don't let them crack your neck. I don't think it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah. You may be one of the most successful producers of religious and faith-based movies in the marketplace now. What is the most challenging part of producing content for that space?
I've got the scripts. The hardest thing is raising money for them. It's weird. I mean, I do movies that have a good message, movies that have a positive story in there, movies that are uplifting, and they'll throw $300 million at an Avatar movie and $100 million in promoting it. I do $3 to $4 million movies, and they make money. I mean, we have not lost anybody ever on investors' money. So it's like, I don't get it. Why I know billionaire guys. Because of the celebrity thing, and I'm a golfer, I get invited to a lot of charity golf events. I've golfed with all the pros, from Tiger Woods to Arnold Palmer. And I look at this and go, wait a minute, you guys just spent $9 million on a politician that didn't even get elected. $9 million. I could have made 2 or 3 really good movies that would be out there forever. Because let's face it, politicians aren't affecting the culture. They're the problem and affecting it in a negative way more than a positive way. So I do movies that are fighting the opposite of what I think what Hollywood's putting out there. You see what's being played out. Walt Disney said himself in the 1950s, television and movies will influence our young. And look what's going on right now being played out in our major cities across the country. I think that there's a place for those movies, fine. I'm not saying don't make those movies, but why not open up the world to movies that have a positive message too, like Hollywood used to do. They just don't do as many of them anymore.
That's also why the Chinese are investing billions into funding and acquiring studios and networks because of the effect it has on the culture.
Sure. Politics is downstream of culture. Who runs the culture? Hollywood and the mainstream media.
Now, you mentioned fundraising, the challenges of fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever approached, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, is one of the largest owners of real estate and one of the largest investors in businesses around the world. A lot of people don't realize the significance and the size of their investment portfolio. Have you ever approached them about partnering with you to help you produce and fund your movies?
I wish there was a way to reach out to them. I mean, I think that I have no idea. I have no idea how to. I mean, I've been to the Vatican. I've walked through there. I heard that they have more gold below those buildings than Fort Knox does. Obviously, very wealthy, very powerful. Why they don't get involved in investing in movies that have a positive message? I don't want to do necessarily just this is a religious movie. I want to speak. I want to speak to everybody out there. I think there's you can be an agnostic or an atheist as well and like a good movie, and like a movie that has a positive message. I mean, so I don't sit there and I don't want to preach to the choir. I want the choir to support the movies I do, but I want to reach out to people and say, hey, what do you think of this movie? I've got atheist friends. I have agnostic friends. They watch my movies. I go, dude, good message, good movie. I mean, I'm not going to force people into believing into something that they don't want to believe in, but I want them to look at a movie that has a good message. Why not?
I suspect that a lot of people just don't think of the Vatican as an investment vehicle. Everybody thinks of hedge funds. They think of their billionaire friends. They think of and other investment trusts. But a lot of people don't think of the Vatican. I think it would be sort of a natural fit for you. But maybe that's another.
Hey, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see what happens there. I mean, you look at the Kendrick brothers out of Atlanta. That's through their church. They raise their money through their own church and put out movies that pretty much just preach to the choir. I mean, they put out straight religious faith-based movies, which are fine. I think there's a place for that too. But I want to reach across the fence. I want people to come from all walks of life and say, just that was a good movie, and that's what I'm doing. I got one out right now in theaters called The Girl Who Believes in Miracles. I got one opening that I directed called Miracle in East Texas. True story, set in 1930 about two con men that would woo widows out of their money in fake oil wells. They end up striking oil in Texas, and the largest oil find in the history of the world back in 1930.
I used to be a producer for Oprah, and Oprah was very religious, and Tyler Perry is very religious.
Sure. Yeah.
I think these guys might also be a natural fit for you. Whether
well, then put me in touch with Oprah.
And so in 2004, Mel Gibson stunned the movie industry by producing The Passion of Christ that made $600 million at the box office. When you saw this phenomena, did you think we were witnessing the birth of a new market segment, or did you think that the American public was just sick of sleazy and family hostile movies that Passion's popularity was caused by people wanting some more quality and some more spirituality in their entertainment?
Well, I think you have the name Mel Gibson behind it. He's a very well-proven director. He's an amazing director. I know that he's prepping to do The Resurrection now. I hope he puts me in it, Mel. He knows me. We've met a number of times. But I just think because of the content, because it was about they've done other movies about Jesus being crucified, but I think Mel Gibson, and I think just because of the way he works and the way he films and the negativity that came out of Hollywood, because Hollywood is, it's a pretty big Jewish community there. And I think they were worried about the representation of the Jewish faith in it. I don't think it hurt their faith whatsoever. I think it was an amazing movie. And from, who knows what really happened back in that time. We know we have those accounts written by the apostles, but I thought it was incredible. It was touching. People were weeping in the theater when I went to it. A woman near me fainted actually watching during the scene when he was being whipped. So it was a powerful message, and obviously the world reacted to it by wanting to see it, because I think they shot it for $30 or $40 million, and like you said, it made $600 million.
So people love your religious movies. They love all the content you've created over the years. But I'm going to make a prediction, and that is, I believe that the crazier our society gets, the more crime skyrockets, the more bizarre the behavior of our politicians becomes. I'm going to predict that the desire for religious content is just going to grow dramatically over the coming years. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think, look, when I directed a movie called Let There Be Light. They came out in theaters about 2.5 years ago. It's a wonderful movie. I hope people, if they haven't seen it, please check it out. It's streaming on Amazon. It's called Let There Be Light. First thing God says in the Bible. It's about the world's greatest atheist. Think Dawkins or Hitchens or Singer, as a life-changing event happened to him that challenges his worldview. And it did very well in theaters. It did very well for Amazon right now. It did very well at Walmart and DVDs. I got a call after opening weekend. We opened number 2 per screen average. A little $2.5 million movie opened number 2 per screen average against Thor Ragnarok, a $300 million movie. I got a call from Netflix right away. I went and met them at their offices 3 times over about a 3-month period. They wanted to open an inspirational division at Netflix. They still haven't done it. So Netflix, if you're listening, hey, I'm still here. I got great scripts for television, for TV series or for movies. I think they should do it. I think they hold back because of the weird ideology that's hit the world right now. But you know what? It's still a business, right? It's still called show business. You can laugh at the Christians or people of faith or families that want content that I do all the way to the bank. You can those stupid families out there that want this kind of movie. But I think that I'm praying and hoping that Netflix opens their door to me. Their door was open and they kind of semi-close it on me. But I'm working on them. Hopefully they'll want to do the stuff I'm doing, because I've got some wonderful, wonderful scripts.
What part of the worldwide marketplace are religious movies and content most popular? Where do they sell really well? Is it the U.S.? Is it the Middle
Oh,
East? What would you guess?
it's still the U.S., I think, but there's a hunger for it in China. There's a hunger for it in Russia. Believe it or not, one of the fastest growing regions for Christianity is in the Muslim world right now. I get a lot of emails to the fan site from Muslims that have become Christians because of the movies I've done. I think the darker the world gets, like you just mentioned earlier, with all this negativity going on, with all this hate and anger and violence. You're right. More and more people want to have something that has a positive message, just to build them up. I get stopped. I travel a lot. I get stopped through airports, hotel lobbies, restaurants, and people say, "Please keep making movies like God's Not Dead and What If and Let There Be Light. Please make more of those movies." I'm trying. Find us the financiers that'll do it, because I know there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of money burning a hole in their pocket. And get a hold of me. SorboFamilyFilmStudios.com. SorboFamilyFilmStudios.com. Good place to go.
So I understand that you moved to Florida a while ago. How do you like it there, and how glad are you that you no longer live in California?
I feel bad for what's happened in California. It's a beautiful state. I loved where I was living the last 10 years there. I was between LA and Santa Barbara, out in an area called Westlake Village. We've been looking to move for at least 7, 8 years now. And I got 2 brothers living in the state. My wife's got a sister here in Florida. So we've been coming out a lot. And I've shot over 60 movies, and I probably shot 90% of those movies in Texas or further east, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida. So I looked at my wife and I said, why are we dealing with the traffic? Why are we dealing with the taxes of the state? Why are we dealing with the insanity of this government? And I just read an article 6 months ago that LA County alone, I was in Ventura County, LA County alone, 200 people a day are moving out. They're moving out. There's a reason for that, folks. There's a reason for that. I mean, they're destroying that state with their socialist politics. It doesn't work, and it's just sad, because that state is stunning. I just shot a new TV series, shot the pilot up in Mount Shasta area in Northern California at a ranch called JH Ranch. Beautiful ranch. It's stunning, and it's called Pieces. And I run a camp for troubled teens. That's my character in it. And it's all about hope, redemption, and bringing love and laughter and self-esteem back into these kids' lives. And I think that's what people are looking for right now. And I hope this series does get picked up. And I heard Netflix is interested. So take a look, Netflix. It's a good one.
So a lot of my celebrity friends have had their homes broken into. They've and so they've moved out of the state entirely. How much worse do you think it's going to get out there?
Well, I mean, I used to live, when I first moved out there, I was in Santa Monica, right in the Venice border. So Gold's Gym was just blocks away from me. That was like a second home to me. And after Gold's Gym, I would go rollerblade or bike all the way down from Santa Monica to Manhattan Beach and back. I loved it. It was my way to get the frustration out of the rejection of the world of Hollywood. But I just recently saw what Venice Beach looks like. It's a tent village now for homeless, and it goes for blocks. And it's just, I mean, there was never like that when I got out there in the 80s. And by 93, of course, I was gone, because I lived in New Zealand 7 years, but I was there a good 6, 7 years before I got the series. And it was beautiful. It was heaven to cruise along that place. But now it's crazy. Now you got people out there fighting, doing drugs, and just, it's drunk. And I mean, that can't be the best thing for people living there, certainly, and doesn't help your tourism at all.
What year did you move to Florida in?
I moved, we've been here almost, 2.5 years ago, we moved here. So 2018, it'll be 3 years coming up here soon.
Nice. So for investors and individuals interested in working with you to help you bring your projects to the market, what's the best place to contact you online?
KevinSorbo.net is always great. KevinSorbo.net, and also SorboFamilyFilmStudios.com. SorboFamilyFilmStudios.com.
Okay. And before we wrap things up, is there anything else that you would like to promote?
I got a movie out there right now called Miracle, The Girl Who Believes in Miracles. It's been in theaters for 6 weeks. The Girl Who Believes in Miracles. I star in it along with Miro Sorvino and Peter Coyote. Wonderful little family movie. And then I got a movie opening in July called One Nation Under God. It's a high school drama about putting that phrase back into our Pledge of Allegiance. And I've got 2 documentaries you've got to see. One was a #1 documentary for 5 months over the last year on Amazon. It's called Before the Wrath. It's a wonderful look at the book of Revelation. I narrate it. And the other one is called Against the Tide. Against the Tide is a documentary on the life of John Lennox. He's an apologist. We spent 3 weeks in Oxford, England. He's a retired math professor there, and 2 weeks in Israel. And you don't have to be a person of faith to watch this while it's proving God in the world of science. So it's a really very fascinating, interesting documentary. It's called Against the Tide movie for more information.
By the way, just out of curiosity, the last few movies that you have done, how long was the shooting schedule, typically, on average?
The actual shooting days, you mean?
Yes.
Probably around 25, 26.
Okay.
So, and I got to remind people that Clint Eastwood did a movie called $1 Million Baby, and it won Best Picture. Morgan Freeman won Best Supporting Actor, and Hilary Swank won Best Actress. They shot that in 27 days. You don't have to have 8 years to shoot a movie with all these visual effects. Or I'm exaggerating. They usually are about 2 or 3 years long to do those things. You can do a movie in a month and a half, guys.
You know, when I see a director who needs to take 75 takes over and over and over, the first thing I think is, what kind of drugs is he doing? And there's no preparation there, I don't think. I think that's part of the problem.
You know what? When I work with directors, especially guys who are starting out and they want to shoot these 16-hour days, I walk up to them very quietly and say, you know, Clint Eastwood shoots 8-hour days and makes Academy Award-winning movies. Just saying. I have 1 week left on the Reagan movie. Dennis Quaid is playing Reagan. I'm playing as Pastor. Nice. And then I'm directing the next Left Behind movie. So I know there's a lot of Left Behind fans out there. The last one came out about 7 years ago with Nicolas Cage. I'm taking over the role that he had. I'm also directing it. And we'll be filming that in hopefully Oklahoma. It looks like we'll be filming in August and September. The next Left Behind movie, guys.
Nice. Well, Kevin, it has been a real pleasure having you on the John Ark Show. I want to wish you continued success and tell you that you are always welcome back on the show, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd love to come back. I'll come back when my movie comes out in August.
Please do. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Thanks again for watching. And I want to tell you that we're going to have more great celebrity interviews and more breaking news stories coming up in the future. So we want to encourage you to subscribe to our free channel and click on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a new story. Thank you for watching, and we shall see you soon.